We now know that one of the most vulnerable groups in the COVID-19 virus is the elderly. Early on, health advice encouraged those within this age group to stay at home and self-isolate to avoid exposure to the virus. Unfortunately, for many, all this time alone has also been socially isolating. Grandparents can play such an important role in children's lives, but right now we have to figure out the best ways of staying in touch and keeping our elderly safe. Grandparents enrich our lives in so many ways, and they can also be a strong support system to lean on as we help our children navigate what is happening in the world. Parenting and family psychology expert and founder of the Triple P Positive Parenting Program, Professor Matt Sanders, is back to talk with us today about watching out for our grandparents, helping them stay healthy, happy, and connected with family and friends.
I feel for my folks. They love being grandparents, but they haven't been able to hug the kids. Try explaining that to a 2-year-old.
I'd say it's hard to keep the kids connected with their grandma. She's just so far away.
I have a question. Why can't I see my nanny and granddad in person?
I worry about this pandemic lasting for years, and I won't be able to travel to see my grandchildren again. I don't have a computer, and the little ones won't stay on the phone.
I haven't been able to go to my craft group and I really miss it. And I just don't know when we'll all be able to get together again.
I think my mum is really lonely and I'm really worried she's getting anxious and depressed.
I'm a granddad myself, and the toughest thing for me over the past few months has been having much less contact with our 5 grandkids. Many grandparents have had to find new ways to catch up over family dinners, helping with homework and reading stories, all via Zoom and FaceTime. That contact is important for us as grandparents, so we're staying connected with the family. But also for our children and grandchildren, so they know we're doing okay.
I'm relying on my parents an awful lot to look after the kids while I work. I couldn't manage otherwise.
We have the great pleasure of looking after our grandchildren. We've got 2, a boy and a girl, and we look after them 2 days a week so that our children and their parents can go to work. I've got to say it's really exhausting, and we're both really tired at the end of each day, but it's worth it.
The biggest worry my kids have is how coronavirus might affect their grandparents.
In so many communities around the world, grandparents are providing a significant amount of informal childcare to their grandchildren. In fact, for many, it would be hard to make ends meet without that support. There are positives to this, of course. There is the financial savings for parents and childcare, and when there are no other options and they have to work, it's essential. And there are many positive implications for grandparents as well, including a greater sense of purpose and meaning in our life. But these are unusual times, and we need to put grandparents' safety first. Grandparents need to be able to say no to childcare without guilt if they're worried about risks to their own health and welfare. Where there is really no alternative, however, families need to work together to follow safety guidelines, like teaching children the importance of regular hand washing and no kisses and hugs just for now.
It's been really hard, and my in-laws have such different ideas about how to handle the kids, but I still want the kids to have a close relationship with them.
I feel like I can never do the right thing in their eyes. So I would rather not go along with my husband. He can take the children to see his parents.
It's not uncommon for there to be a certain amount of conflict between parents and grandparents. Different generations can have different ideas about parenting, and this may be more obvious once we start to reconnect in person more frequently. Parents don't like to get unsolicited parenting advice from their own parents about how to manage their children, and grandparents don't like to be told that they don't know best. We need to find the right balance between grandparents supporting their adult children in their parenting role and also enjoying caring for grandchildren in their own way. So it's important to get on the same page as much as possible. And the way to do that is to have good communication between parents and grandparents. Like talking about the rules and limits and the way you're going to deal with different kinds of behaviours, both at home and at school, so grandparents are aware of your expectations and perhaps the expectations of others that you're needing to deal with as a parent.
Mum and Dad are really missing the grandchildren, and we're all missing seeing them as well.
As many families are overwhelmed with health, housing and financial issues, many grandparents are worried about what their families are going through and need ways to express their concern, their empathy towards their adult children and grandchildren. Sharing their own experiences growing up and even stories they were told as children, such as about the Spanish flu, are an invaluable way of reassuring younger generations and passing on precious history. Grandparents, particularly in more developed countries, are aware that they have had many opportunities and privileges, but the world that their adult children and grandchildren have inherited has suffered from the overuse of the planet's resources. Grandparents can comfort their adult children and grandchildren that this pandemic situation may help us all learn some really important lessons about slowing down and about valuing quality family time with family and friends, and perhaps thinking more about consumerism and the impact of what we're doing on the planet. We need to work together to learn to live in a safer relationship with nature and the environment to preserve our future. There are some great ideas to help children express and process what they're going through right now. Things like frequent calls for grandchildren to talk about their day and what's going on in their house. Listening over the phone or device to the grandchildren's music practice, reading or sharing something they've learned together. Encouraging children to make up plays and dances and songs and drawings and paintings, or a scrapbook of what's happening right now that will preserve their memories of this year to share with their own children. They can also encourage drawings of how their grandchildren would like the world to be in the future. Most importantly, grandparents can share messages of love, that the family is the most important thing to them, and the most pleasurable time of the day is when their grandchildren talk about their day, and of course letting grandchildren know how much they are longing to give them a big cuddle.
That's all for this episode of Parenting in a Pandemic. Here are your tips for the week. Tip number 1, it's important that we stay connected with grandparents as often as we can right now, not only for their benefit, but the whole family's. Tip number 2, if grandparents are providing childcare, protect their health and teach children about the importance of hand washing and physical distancing. Tip number 3, treat grandparents as part of the parenting team. We all have different ideas about parenting, so talk openly about your values and expectations. And tip number 4, grandparents play an important role in supporting their families through these tough times and finding the positives. They can help grandchildren express their feelings, be creative, and plan for a better future. Thanks for listening to Parenting in a Pandemic. If you're enjoying this podcast, make sure you like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to leave a review. It'll help others to find this series. You can find free COVID-19 Parenting in a Pandemic resources in the episode show notes to help you on this journey.